Welcome to Outside the Frame, a podcast for wedding industry professionals to learn how to be better humans in business and life.
We're your hosts,
Kaitlyn of Skyewater Photo and Film,
and Kaylyn of Wandering Wildflower Films. We're here to create a supportive and meaningful space for diverse voices to discuss social and personal issues that impact wedding pros.
Our hope is that collectively, we can bring more of ourselves and the things that matter to the forefront of our work in the wedding industry and give all of us the courage to focus our business around who we are and what we care about.
We're so glad you're joining us. Thanks for tuning in.
Recording in progress.
We're doing it.
Oh my goodness. We are so excited to be starting this podcast today. This is episode number 1. We will be chatting about how both of us got into the wedding industry. We will also be discussing why did we start this podcast? Where did it come from? And why are we doing it? And then what you can expect from us and really what not to expect from us. So I'd love to dive in and ask Kaitlyn a couple questions. Let's get to know her. Kaitlyn, how did you get into the wedding photo video industry?
It was kind of by happenstance. I started out in the industry back in, I think it was either 2011 or 2012. I had already done several portrait sessions for friends and family. I had done some graduation photos, headshots, that sort of thing. And a friend of mine knew somebody getting married. And since it was meant to be kind of a smaller budget focused wedding, they were just trying to find some sort of college student who might be interested in coming on and being a photographer for their wedding day for a much smaller budget. So I talked with them and I came on and documented the day, and it's pretty much just taken off since then. I continued doing photo and video while in grad school. And really, I didn't even see it being such a big part of my life for quite a long time until 2017. I took the leap to be a full-time entrepreneur, and it's really just kind of taken off since then.
That's so incredible. Do you feel like when you were a kid and growing up, you had no idea this is going to be where your life is going to take you?
Oh yeah, I felt always that there was some sort of creative driving force for me. I had basically been taking photos with smaller handheld point and shoot cameras since I was a teenager. So that part was always there. But yes, I never would have expected that this would be my career, my everything, like a huge part of my life. I envisioned becoming more of a published author. That's still a dream. That's still a pipe dream. But no, never in a million years did I think that this was going to be such a huge part of my life.
I love that. Well, when you are an author, I will buy your book. I need a signed copy though.
Yeah. Signed copies for everybody.
I'd love to talk a little bit about your experience with being queer. I know, just recently you posted about it with it being Pride Month and just being more comfortable in your own skin. I would love to hear more about how that is and how your experience has been.
Yeah, it's honestly been really weird. It's still something that I'm coming around to being more open about. And yes, posting about it recently was something that I felt had been a long time coming. Something that initially I was like, is this like peeling an onion? Is this like, me opening up to more of myself? And honestly, it felt more like uncoiling a snake around me. It was something that had been on my mind for quite some time. And I just felt that if I was hoping to continue working with more couples in the queer community, that if I'm expecting them to be their full self with me and that we're coming at our work together, our time together, as coming from a place of honesty and transparency, that I should also be doing that and speaking to my truth. So it's still a little weird in some ways to like the feeling internally feels a little weird to continue saying that, but I've been doing it a little bit over time of like telling a few of my couples here and there, mentioning it slowly to friends and family over time. It's an ongoing lesson and an experience for me.
Have you gotten any pushback from anyone in your life, if you're willing to share?
I'd probably be willing to talk about it over time. Right now, it's still so fresh and so new for some people. But no, I think a lot of the core people that I know and love, everybody's been either already super supportive. Some people have been a little inquisitive. And I think for some other people, it's actually really entertaining because some people are like, oh, that doesn't surprise me. Or I kind of already knew in some way. I really appreciate that because then that makes me feel like, okay, cool. So like if maybe someday we can get to the point where it doesn't have to be a formal statement that like someone saying who they really are is just like, oh, cool. Like I appreciate you telling me and I'm glad to know you better instead of it having to be this whole formal statement.
Yeah, it's very brave of you to come out and to share that. And I think it is so interesting that it is such like a not a taboo, but it's like, oh, you have to share that. Whereas like if you are straight, you're just like, that's who I am. You don't have to state it, which I think is so silly. Like, why can't we just be who we are, love who we want, and just that's okay. Like we don't have to announce it to the world.
Oh, I know, and I mean, the amount of women who've come forward and told me that they are in essentially the same position, like, they are in a heteronormative appearing relationship, several of them married, they're happily married, that's not changing, and yet they still feel the need to hide this part of themselves, and so, probably the thing that shook me the most over the last 24 hours was 2 of my former brides. I'm not going to name them, but 2 of them have come out basically saying, "My partner knows." One of them said, "I'm literally the second person that they told," but that everything I wrote spoke to them so deeply that they were able to respond to me and say, "Thank you." That meant a lot to hear someone else say these things. So yeah, it's still still very fresh, very new, but I love hearing that it's had such a huge impact on people already.
Yeah, it definitely helps to see someone else. I just was working on something for a women's panel and they were like, if I see it, I know I can do it. And I think that's really powerful. Like us sharing and being open about it is helps other people feel courageous to do that themselves. Why Skyewater? Where did that name come from? Why?
So, Skyewater was a rebrand of mine during COVID times while everybody was spending time reevaluating their business and, what can we do differently moving forward? It had been on my mind for quite a while because I was starting to work as a team. I was starting to dive more into video, offering photo and video together. And the previous name that I had was Ketogenic Photography. And it was basically a merging of my name, Kaitlyn, with photogenic. And while some people did get that connection, initially when I created it, it wasn't a huge deal. But over time, the keto diet became like a huge thing. And so some people just got this like weird idea that my brand had something to do with the ketogenic diet or something. So that was part of it. But then
Yeah.
building a team and so it was a merging of things. It was wanting to rename after all of that. I wanted the brand to be less about me and more about our mission, what we're focused on. And I just took a lot of time diving into all things business related in 2020 and 2021 about like where I wanted my company to go moving forward, what I wanted my company to stand for. So a lot of it was through a lot of self-reflection after taking courses like Venture Instead, the elopement photographer course, and a handful of others. And it was just really thinking through what makes me happy? What work do I enjoy the most? And everything that I kept coming back to was water. It's been a huge piece of my life as a writer and a big piece of my life personally, the best version of myself, the most happy, the most fulfilled when I'm near the water, when I'm spending time on the water. And so I just kept thinking, well, there's all these brands out there that are focused on very specific locations, right? Like they're like,
Mhm.
I'm a Rocky Mountain National Park photographer. I'm a Southern California photographer. I'm this, I'm that. Some are focused on like luxury weddings and, certain
Mhm.
types of venues. And when I just came down to it, I was like, well, why can't I just do like a theme? Like why do I have to limit myself to one type of scenery when really there's water everywhere. There's water in the rain. There's water on lakes and rivers and the coastlines and everything. And I didn't want to feel limited to just one type of scenery. And water also gives that to me. So yeah, so I kind of just kept brainstorming different names. And the word sky, Skye, is a beautiful Scottish word. And there's a lot of history with that word also meaning sense of adventure, a sense of the outdoors. And so when I was basically brainstorming all versions of different words out there, I just loved this idea that it was merging these two concepts together. So now I'm focused mostly on water-centric locations. And what I love most about that too is that it doesn't even prevent me from being in the desert because the desert has been largely shaped by water, by great historic oceans and lakes that existed millions of years ago. So I love that kind of ties it all in to the landscape as well.
And it's so thoughtful, right? You're not just like, oh, I'm gonna pick a random name and like make ChatGPT like pick me a name. It's
Oh
like, no,
yeah.
this is intentional. This is thoughtful, which I mean, we'll talk about in the next episode when we talk about, our values and why we do what we do and how it's important to integrate that, right? We're not just out here floating around. Like we are being intentional and thoughtful about everything that we do, everything in our business, from the name to the couples we serve and so on. So that's really cool.
Well, exactly. And when I started thinking about water in general, sustainability was a big piece of redoing the brand as well, which is
Mm-hmm.
why I started adding in the ability to donate a portion of our sales, a portion of our profits to organizations that also are doing things to protect our oceans and our waterways. So that was a big part of it too.
Incredible. All the
Yeah.
incredible, thoughtful, and intentional things. We got to love it. We're all here for it.
Yeah, I think that it really helps, give you a backstory about that. But I would also love to hear about your story and how you got into the video industry.
So mine was kind of roundabout. As usual, oh, a man got me into it. Well, it was actually my ex. He was doing video. At the time I did photos just for fun. I had bought a couple cameras. I remember having this little pink point and shoot camera that my parents bought me forever ago, and I would take it on trips with me, climbing and hiking and doing all the things. So I was always into photography. And then it kind of led into video when I met my ex. He was super into video. He did all these GoPro videos and just was out having fun, trying it out. He'd done a couple weddings, and we kind of came to this crossroads of, well, what do we do? Does he want to go into engineering and do that, or does he want to start a business for video? And he tried the engineering thing. The school stuff didn't work out. So we ended up launching a video business together, and I just kind of learned on the job. I didn't like thrown in, like, let's see where this goes, see what happens. And so we started a traditional wedding video business, did maybe 6 months of that, and we took a couple out snowshoeing like before their wedding. It was like a couple months before, and they wrote little letters to each other. And it was the sweetest, most thoughtful, intentional, grounding thing that I've ever done, that I was like, wow, how can we make this full time? So that was kind of what sparked us from coming out of the more traditional weddings. And we still did a few, and I still do traditional weddings, and I love them. There are certain ones that are so much fun, but I've found that with elopements and adventures, it's a little bit more intentional. It's a little more thoughtful, oftentimes, not always, obviously. Can't put anything in a box, because there are always exceptions. There are always people that fit into 20 different boxes. But yeah, it was just this crazy journey that brought me there. And then, that relationship didn't work out, and the business went with him, and all the camera gear and all the editing gear went with him. And I kind of stepped away from video for a while and was like, I don't know, it doesn't really feel like my thing. I didn't think it was right for me. And I still ended up buying a camera and a computer and just kind of traveled around. I had like a microphone, a camera, a tripod. That was like it. Like one lens,
The
nothing
basics.
crazy. Yes, just what you need. So I went and traveled and took video as I was traveling and adventuring, and that sparked my interest in it again. And then I found myself in a dead end job that I thought would be great. I was a teacher for 6, 7 years. And so I was like, oh, it'll be great. I can do something that's super easy and doesn't take a lot of brain power. And I found myself 4 months in, and I was like, this is terrible. Please get me out. So that kind of led me to explore video a little more seriously. I started reaching out to people, second shooting, getting back in the industry, buying more gear. And now I do it full time, which is still insane to me. I still feel like a newbie, but I know that I've been doing this for 7, 8 years now, but it does feel like, oh my gosh, I've only been doing this for like a year or two. But it's just because it's been such a journey and a roundabout way to get here. It's been really fun. And I honestly think I appreciate it more because of how far it's taken me, and all the roundabout ways that I've gone to get to this point. I think it makes me be like, wow, this is the right path. And every day I'm like, wow, yeah, this is it, just different things over and over that I realize like, yep, this is my passion. This is what I want to do.
How does it feel to have something that's yours now compared
Oh,
to working with somebody else?
yeah, it's huge. I mean, honestly, it was a huge thing to let go of, because it felt like my baby, right? It was like, oh, I built this thing from the ground up. And yes, it was a joint thing that we did together, but I still put a lot of time and energy into it. So to lose everything, the footage, I mean, I had nothing. I started from zero again. I didn't even have footage. I had a few phone videos and a few videos that I had helped edit that I had on my phone still, luckily, that I was able to use. But I really started from zero. And it feels really powerful to say that it's 100% mine and that nobody can take it because nobody else owns it. I have 100% everything I do, all the editing, all the filming, everything is mine. The only thing I get is some advice from people here and there, but that's really powerful. And it feels good to feel empowered in that, I think. It like is part of it. And it helped me feel more confident in who I was as well as a person. Because it's been such a journey, like going through a big breakup and trying to find myself again. It's just been a crazy whirlwind. And it feels really good to sit in this place and be like, yeah, this is my job, this is my life. And now I'm starting a podcast with another person who's in the industry. And like,
I know.
we've been talking about this and talking about it and talking about it. And we're like, you know what? Let's just do it ourselves. And I just love that.
I'm grateful that we met at a time where you're kickstarting things all off for yourself again, because we might not have even crossed paths in the same exact way had you not started your own company post-divorce. It could be totally different circumstances now.
Oh, absolutely. I'd be friends with all the couples and all, this is like, that was the path we were on, right? We were getting to know the big wigs or the people that were bigger in the industry. And it's just so interesting to see how that path has totally diverged. And I'm not on that path anymore. And now I'm with less of the mainstream industry folks. And I love it. I think that it's a lot more grounded folks and a lot more just intentional folks. And I think that's really nice to be around instead of just, oh, we have to do everything this perfect way or this certain way. It's like, no, let's feel it out. Let's be really intentional with our couples. Let's be thoughtful with them. It's just a different atmosphere than I think if I would have stayed in the path that I was going.
And I think that kind of leads great into the question I have for you, which is, what is it like being a woman in the filmmaking industry?
For me, it's been an interesting journey because it started out as me being like the second, right? I was a part of a duo. So I wasn't fully just a female in the industry. I was a partner to a male. And I had a male get me into it. And so I think that's just such a different experience. But now that I am truly just a female in the industry, it's really exciting, but it's also can be a lot. I have a note here about like it being a boys' club. I don't know if that's inappropriate to say or if that's like bad, but it does. It feels like a boys' club.
Well, it's very tech heavy. It's very gear heavy, right?
Yeah.
And guys love the gadgets.
Typically, obviously there's, not everybody, but it does.
No.
It feels like it's very focused on, oh, the shot has to be exactly perfectly composed and you have to use the right gear and you always have to be constantly buying new cameras and new lenses. And for me, it's like, no, buy what you need, get the basics, get what makes your films good, and then film with intention, film with emotion. Catherine from Blink Films made a class that talked about just intentional storytelling. And half of the class was just putting your own self into the mindset of what are you even doing and why are you doing it? Of like putting your heart and soul into filmmaking instead of just, you have to have this, certain, I don't know, just like all the logistical pieces. It's like, yes, the logistics are important, but once you've learned the basics of how to film and how to film well, you need to dive into how do we add emotion? How do we add intention? How do we really pull couples' stories out instead of just, oh, I made a beautiful film that looks like a really nice music video. But like, that's not what this is about. This is about telling stories. This is about creating films that draw emotion, whether that's joy or sadness or whatever emotion, right? We're pulling that from people instead of just, oh, those are some pretty beautiful videos. And like, that's a nice moving picture. It's like, no, I'm telling a story, which I think it's so different. Oftentimes it's just, oh, how do you do this? How do you do that? Instead of why are we doing this? And how are we making our couples feel comfortable? And where is the intention and the story behind it? And so that's been really cool. And I've also found being a female filmmaker, I don't know if it impresses people, but it's like people are like, wow, that's so cool.
Yeah.
It's unexpected. So I think when people see me as a female filmmaker, it just makes them excited. I work with some outdoor industry folks as well. And one of them had been in some other films and she was a big mountain biker and done some really cool skiing films. And she was like, I'm putting the mic on her. I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. Like, is it okay if I do this or that? And she's like, oh yeah, totally. I'm used to a dude just being like, I'm going to go under here and like do this and do that. It's just
Like
such
no
a
permission, no asking questions, anything.
exactly. And it's just like super, or them like trying to uncomfortably tell them like, oh, I need you to do this and that and this with the mic. And it's just nice to be a woman and be able to say, hey, like, I'm here, let's do this together. It just makes them feel more comfortable, especially with women in the outdoors, because it is such a male dominated industry itself. I'm also helping them say, oh, also my filmmaker is female or the photographer is female. And that brings more camaraderie into the experience instead of it just being like one girl and a bunch of dudes. I still see that, It's just like, ah. And I think, again, it's the intention behind the films. Women have a different way of going about filmmaking than most men. And again, it's not all men. There are exceptions. And there's also women that just want the big buff, like, let's do crazy stuff. But I think when it comes to, in general, with women filmmakers, it's more, let's be thoughtful, let's be intentional, let's really tell a story. It's been fun. It's crazy too, because I'm a big rock climber. So like all my life, I've just been around men, like men, men, men. So many of my close friends are men. I just went on a climbing trip with a man. Like, it's just the way it is.
Well, and it's so funny too, like that you mentioned the, rock climbing and stuff. I have a friend of mine and she says that she's gotten to the point now, having been back in the dating scene for the last few years, that literally every single guy wants to say something like, let's go to the climbing gym together, as if that's like the thing to do. And it's so funny to me. I don't know if it's because they feel like they want to connect on like a different level than just like a typical activity. I don't know if that stems from just them wanting to show, I know how to do something and I know how to teach you how to do something. I'm not sure where it comes from. I think that the more that we can continue doing things like this, of breaking down those barriers and making things more even, and also even just following more people and being more aware of other women in filmmaking. I now follow, I can send it to you later. I probably should have sent it before all this, but I now follow a videographer that works on the sidelines of football games. She works for the San Francisco 49ers. And so every time she shares something about how shocked people are when she says, oh, I love football or whatever, and guys will be like, oh yeah, let me take you to a game. And she's like, do you even know what I do for a living? Like I'm on the sidelines. I'm recording all these cool shots with, football players all the time. So I just love the more that we can kind of get out there and kind of break some of these typical barriers, the better that we'll all be. We can all learn from each other.
Well, representation matters, like in every facet of our lives. If we see someone else doing it, we know that we can do it. We know it's possible. There's so many different industries that I feel like are very male dominated. My partner is an engineer. There are so many more men in the industry than women. And then it's also like teaching. There's a lot of women in teaching and not a lot of men in teaching. So I think the representation is so important in every space to see that, oh, there's all these different diverse voices, people that have different ideas that are doing these different things. And I think that also helps break down barriers, because as soon as you are able to see someone else do it that looks like you or that sounds like you, whatever, then you're like, okay, I can do that. And I'm seeing it with kids nowadays too. I think that young girls are more likely to get into these different industries or try different things, get into STEM, get into videography, whatever might be typically male dominated, because they're not afraid, because they see other women doing it. And that's the really cool thing. I just saw a post about Wimbledon and all the like tennis tournaments, and how for years and years the men would always get like 20% more, or it was a significant amount more. And because of all of the women that led ahead, they finally, I think it was just this year, the French Open finally had the same amount for the male and the female winner, which like is wild to me. Like, it's 2025. What are we doing? Why are we still fighting for this? But we are. Like, we're still fighting the fight, and it still needs to happen. But I think the more we can do it, the more representation out there, the better that everything will become more equal, or at least equitable. It doesn't always have to be equal, but at least more equitable and more reasonable for people of any shape, size, color to be a part of these different groups.
And I think so much of what we're talking about is going to be relatable to a variety of industries, but bringing it back to our own industry, I think we're both going to come on here and kind of talk about why we started this podcast. But I would love to hear from your perspective what was like the initial couple conversations or ideas that you had before we kind of decided to create this podcast? What was the why for you?
For me, I was always feeling like I wasn't blank enough. Literally talked to somebody about this on a bike ride this morning, of this feeling of I'm not educated enough, or I'm not experienced enough, or I'm not knowledgeable enough, whatever the blank enough is. There's like so many little pieces that I'm holding myself back, and I'm seeing these holes. I'm like, well, I can't do this 100%. So like, I shouldn't be teaching people about this, or I don't know everything about this, so I shouldn't be the one talking about it. But really, because I'm noticing the hole, I should be doing something about it. And specifically between you and I, we had a lot of conversations. I feel like that just kept coming up to like, we're missing these conversations in our industry of talking about diversity and inclusion and creating spaces that are safe for everyone. And we've really dove into that conversation over and over and over again. And I remember we got to a point where we were just like, I think we need to start a podcast. Like, I think it started as talking about, oh, we should do a summit, or we should do like a workshop. Like, oh, we're missing out on these
Something. You're just like,
workshops.
something needs to exist. Yeah.
Something for this needs to exist. We need to hear more female voices. We need to hear more diverse voices, whatever it was. And then we were like, wait, why don't we just do this? And that's what so many other people are doing. They're saying, oh, this is what's missing. I'm going to fill the gap. Whereas I know for me, I was like, well, I'm not good enough to fill that gap. I see the gap. I want to fix it, but I never felt enough for it. So this is kind of my way to be like, no, I'm going to stop talking about it and I'm going to do something about it. It's scary to put yourself out there, try something. But I think in the end, that's what we all have to do. We have to do things that are scary. We have to do things that terrify us. And if we see something that needs to change, we need to do it instead of just waiting for somebody else to do it, because who knows if someone will.
Yeah.
That'll feel even worse, because it's like, well, I saw it and I should have done something, but I didn't. I'm done just standing around. We're going to do it now.
Yeah. Well, and I think we kept coming back to this idea that we wanted something to exist. We weren't sure if we were the best, whatever you want to put it, the best voices, the most educated, whatever, to put this out there to the world. But between the two of us, we have so many great connections in the industry. It's pretty astounding once we finally started putting that down on paper. And when we first started realizing that a summit might be too short, a workshop might be too short. It's something that you can attend and then forget about it a week later. Even a retreat, same thing. It all seems so temporary. And also it just seemed like it was such a hurdle. The idea of trying to put it on somebody else to put together, or waiting until somebody else did something. And I just kept thinking of the quote about being a writer. It's this paraphrased idea from Carol Shields and Toni Morrison of writing the book you want to write. And how I said, maybe we just need to make the podcast we want to hear. And I feel like we're definitely kind of taking that and running with it right now.
No, we're definitely taking that and we're like, no, let's just do it. And I think too, accessibility. It's like, oh, a workshop would be great, but then you got to charge people and that costs money. And some people might not be able to travel to it if it's in a physical space. So this is a way that we can create these educational moments and amplify the voices of people that deserve to be amplified in a way that is accessible to pretty much everybody, which is quite incredible and also terrifying.
Yeah, it's super exciting and makes me anxious all at once.
I know, I was all like, felt really cool and calm. And then the last like 20 minutes before we hopped on, I was getting all nervous. I was getting the butterflies inside. I was like, I don't know about this. In the end, the why is we saw the space and we're going to do something about it. That's how you make change. There's so much going on in the world right now, especially, and it feels really overwhelming. For me, especially, I'm like, I don't know, should I post on Instagram? Should I not? Should I do this? Should I do that? Should I continue living my life? Do I need to just sit in the corner and cry? Like, it's so hard just to know what we need and what's best in these situations, that being able to find the small things in our community, in our spaces, in our industry, and make a difference there, that feels good, because at least we're making a difference. It might not be in the whole scheme of all these large issues that are going on in our world, but at least we can focus on our little community and go from there. And hopefully that'll help blossom more positive change as well. because
Yeah,
you can't change
providing a
everything.
space, right,
Hmm.
for conversations to happen. We started thinking about all these other conversations that are currently existing in the industry. It's very heavy focused on trends or education, improving your Instagram presence, and all these other things. And we just kept noticing that there's this huge gap in a lot of conversations that are hard to have, topics that are not easy to cover, even in one episode. We're going to have several episodes on some of these conversations, but there's not enough people talking about diversity, inclusion, motherhood, being a solo entrepreneur, dealing with your own personal problems while also trying to be in an industry that's so focused on love, happiness, and joy. It's almost like we don't even want to admit that there's all this other tough shit, for lack of a better word, that
Yeah,
like we
yeah.
that we go through on a regular basis. And
Hmm.
to be dealing with all of that and overcoming all those hurdles while also working in an industry that needs to be so positive and uplifting all the time. It's
Hmm.
exhausting.
Yeah, I mean, for me, even like going through my divorce, and we'll talk about this more in the future, but a little tidbit of that, it was so hard for me. I cried at a few weddings, listening to the vows, being a part of that situation because I was still struggling with my own divorce and I was still struggling with those feelings of pain that come out of that, but then also still trying to be present and be there for my couple. It's a tricky thing, and we all deal with so many different things, whether it's loss from a family member or it's loss from a child or whatever, right? There's so many different things that we deal with, or even just stress and anxiety. And to have to come and like show a good face at the wedding day can be hard. We in this industry, in the wedding industry, often just shove that aside and we're like, it's not, we don't need to talk about it. It's fine. It exists, but we're just gonna like push it aside and not deal with it. And anyone who's ever been in therapy has ever learned shoving your feelings aside is not a productive thing. We're not solving any issues by pressing those aside and just like hiding them. This podcast will be a really great way to pull out those topics that we often are afraid to talk about. And often it's hard to be transparent about because you're worried about how you will be perceived by couples, by others in the industry. So it can be scary to put your values out there. But I also think that as we move into this world that we are now living in, it is more and more important to bring that to the forefront. And we'll talk more about that next time. But, I think it is something that is becoming more and more prevalent and more important to be open about what you believe in and really put that forward so people know that they're safe with you or they're not safe with you. And that's okay, right? Everybody's not for everyone.
That we're able to be transparent, right? To stop being like
Mhm.
so afraid of being honest and open about where we stand. It does a disservice to the industry. It does a disservice to couples if they don't know that they'll be safe with us. But it also, we talked about this several times, but we owe it to ourselves and to our couples to be open about where we stand, how we feel about certain things. And I'm excited to kind of see where this podcast goes with all these conversations. We're kind of coming to the end of this first episode here. Who is this podcast for?
Specifically, we're going to be talking from a perspective from wedding videographers, photographers, others in the industry. But I think really it can be open to anyone else, whether they're couples that are getting married or even just friends. Anyone could value from these conversations because, yes, we are talking about it in the realm of wedding industry, but everything that we're going to be speaking about with diversity, inclusion, motherhood, all of those things come into our daily lives in every facet. And so, yes, wedding industry is where we're starting because that's our bubble that we live in. That is what we know best and the people that we're connected with. But I think everyone really can value from this and see this perspective and then be able to talk about it and integrate it into whatever else they're talking about. We're just trying to show people and give a space for people to talk about these things without feeling like, oh, I'm going to get judged or people are going to hate on me or I'm going to get totally shunned by the industry. It's like, no, no, we're just here. This is a safe space. We're going to talk about it. We're going to be open about it. We're going to be transparent. And that's it. And I think that's a powerful conversation to hear from, yes, wedding industry folks, but also really anyone. Like, come listen. Here are our ideas and share what you think we should talk about too, because all the things need to be brought up.
It keeps coming back to this idea of we're trying to be better in our business, trying to be better people in our lives. And those don't have to be two separate things. We keep seeing all these things about, how to be the best entrepreneur, how to be the best mom. Well, why can't you have a conversation about both? Like, why can't you have conversations about being a good human and also being a great entrepreneur all in one.
So many of us are going through our own personal problems. I mean, my own wedding videographer for my initial wedding, they got divorced before we even got our wedding video. So there are so many people in our beautiful industry of weddings that are also struggling with things. And so it's important for us to bring that out and talk about it. What can anyone expect from our podcast? And then maybe let's dive into what they shouldn't expect from us as well.
We're not here to have a repeat conversation of what's already being put out there. We're not here to talk about general business fluff, how to do this, how to build your website, how to build your social media presence, even hot topics, hot debates in the industry, controversial trends and stuff like that. That's already being talked about, and that's great. I'm glad those conversations are happening. But to us, the biggest driver of doing something different really comes down to having a more honest, transparent, kind conversation that really kind of gets to the heart of a lot of difficult topics that either seem, like you mentioned earlier, something that might seem taboo, something that might just seem really, really hard to talk about with a lot of gray area. There's not going to be a perfect right or wrong answer in a lot of these topics because life is complicated. Being a business owner is complicated. There's a lot to be learned and a lot of great conversation to be had with people from a variety of backgrounds, with a variety of skills, with a variety of religions, perspectives, sexualities, skin colors, body shapes, everything that you name it, so that we can come together to create a community, to create a conversation that allows us to be not just a better photographer, a better videographer, planner, etc., but we're also trying to be better humans, better allies to other people in the industry, and also providing a space to really amplify voices in the industry.
These things need to be discussed. No more watering down of these topics, no more shoving our feelings aside. Like, let's bring it out. No more shame.
Fear.
Yes, let's just be open, honest, transparent, and kind.
I'm so happy that we're doing this. I'm happy that you all are here. We invite you to listen. Let us know what you think.
Please send any information or notes, or if you're like, oh, really should really talk about this topic, or if you know somebody in the industry that has some really good things to share about these different topics that people don't often talk about, please bring it to our attention. You can comment on our podcast wherever you're listening, or you can send us an email. We will have some information in the show notes of how you can contact us. And we will be back next episode talking about our personal values and why values are even important to talk about with your business. Thanks so much.
Thanks for joining.